Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope that you are doing so very well. Today I'm talking about all the books that I read in February, which did not include my January winter book because I posted that wrap up so late into the month. This one's coming late too. We'll get caught up at some point, y'all. I read 8 books in February. Technically, I finished one of them in March, but I read most of it in February, so I'm counting it. First up is The Last Mrs Parish by Liv Constantine. I read this for book club, and I had an Audible credit, so I got the audiobook, listened to one chapter, and hated it. Luckily, I got to work. Stephanie was there. She said that I could borrow her copy of the book because she had already read it, and so I returned the Audible book because I did not want to waste an Audible credit on that. This is about a girl named Amber, and she has made it her mission to be the replacement for this lady named Daphne, so she weasels her way into her life. She wants to marry her husband. She wants to take everything she has because she thinks that Daphne doesn't deserve it. But there's twists and turns along the way, and things are not what they seem. So many things I hated about this book. Let me just name the ways. I'm gonna go into spoilers here, so if you wanted to read this book, sorry. And also gonna give a trigger warning for domestic abuse. Just fast forward until I have the next book held up. This book was awful for so many reasons. First of all, it was like they tried to take big twists from Big Little Lies, from Gone Girl, and just make them into this book, and none of them worked. The main character, Amber, who is the villain of the book, you spend the whole first half of the book in her head, and I understand that she's a villain. I understand that she needs to be unlikable, but there was literally nothing that you could root for her for. All she did was talk about how much she hated the other women that she was around, criticized their appearance, or talked about people's outfits. Like, that was it. She wasn't smart. She was just the worst, and I hated being in her head. Then halfway through you have a perspective shift, and Daphne comes in, and you find out that Daphne's husband is very abusive. So she found out what Amber was doing, let her come into her life and take her place so she could get out, which I totally understand, and you get out any way that you can. But later in the book, like at the very end, she basically goes back and says, "You deserved this because of what you tried to do to me," which is wrong on so many levels. You deserve prison. You deserve just consequences for your actions for what you did, but not like a lifetime of abuse. So yeah, I had a lot of problems with the book. I gave it a 2 stars because my 1 star is like, there was nothing redeemable about this. And the second half of the book was pretty bearable, but I may have to take this down to a 1 star for talking about it because I hate it so much and it's the worst. So I gave The Last Mrs Parish a 1 out of 5 stars. Next up is The Boy Most Likely To by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This is a companion novel to My Life Next Door. It follows the sister of the main guy in that book, and her name is Alice, and then Tim, who also makes a lot of appearances in that book. Tim has been living that party lifestyle, but he's been trying to get his life back on track. His dad has given him an ultimatum to kind of just get his life together or he is written out of everything. But then something happens that radically changes his life and is something he didn't ever expect. And him and Alice have been getting closer, so she is kind of having to deal with that with him, and they're trying to work through that and their relationship and trying to figure out who they are together. This book was alright. I liked the arc of the characters, how Tim changed and how he grew throughout this whole book and what he learned, but overall things just kind of happened. There was no build up to anything. It was a good contemporary, but it wasn't like anything special, if that makes sense. I liked My Life Next Door much more than this book, so I was kind of disappointed, but like not the worst book, not The Last Mrs Parish. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. Next up is Love, Life, and the List by Casey West. This is about a girl named Abby, and she is an artist, but she hasn't been through a lot, so she hasn't had a lot of depth in her paintings, and that's what she's told, so she makes a list to try to make her art better. And her best friend Cooper, who she has been in love with for a long time, which is unrequited love, decides to help her with this list and to be the good friend that he is, but she's just like pining after him the whole time. This was good. Not my favorite Casey West, but the cover is beautiful. I just heard about it and I was like, friends to lovers, I need it in my life. So I got it and I read it because I was really in the mood for contemporary. It wasn't anything bad, but the whole romance plot was extremely frustrating. You guys know I love friends to lovers, and this was like the worst kind of friends to lovers, but the story was cute. I like lists. I like people completing lists. So this had a lot of things going for it that I would have loved, that I would have liked, but it just kind of fell a little flat for me. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle, and I buddy read this with Elena. Her Instagram is Mint Shake, and she always posts about ice cream, so you should just go follow her there. I was a terrible buddy reader for this because I finished it like a week after Elena. If you don't know what A Wrinkle in Time is about, it's about a girl named Meg Murray, and her dad has been missing for quite a while. Then her little brother Charles Wallace introduces her to this lady named Mrs. Whatsit, and they and their new friend Calvin go on this adventure through time and space to try and save her father from it. We were both kind of reading this book because the movie just came out that is based on this book, and I really loved the movie. Very different from the book, but in all the best ways. This book is very random. Things happen and they don't totally make sense, and that's part of the charm of it, but it's also part of the reason that it's not like my favorite ever. My mom actually read this book to us whenever we were growing up, so I have a lot of memories tied to this book, and I love the later books in the series, especially the book about the twins. It's so good. I say that and I haven't read it in years, so I need to reread it and make sure I still like it. But overall, a great childhood story, a lot of good life lessons about defeating evil and how good wins out and believing in yourself. It's weird and it's random, but it has some good messages. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up is What I Thought Was True by Huntley Fitzpatrick. All the Huntley Fitzpatrick books. I was sent those by Penguin, I want to say like 2 years ago, and I'm just not reading them, so good job me. This is about a girl named Gwen, and she's starting her final summer before her senior year. She just got a new job lined up on this island where she lives, where there's basically very rich people and people who work the island. Those are the two different realms of people. Then a guy she used to date, who is kind of in that rich people realm, is the yard boy for the island for the summer. She sees him all the time and she doesn't know how to work through those feelings, so there's gonna be a lot of that this summer, along with dealing with her family and all the dramas, you know. It's a contemporary romance, you know there's drama. I don't know if I like this more than My Life Next Door. I'd have to reread it to see it. I don't have time for that right now. I loved how Cassidy was just like out to win Gwen back. I want to say 3/4 through the book they tell you why like things went south with them, and he was a jerk in that. Like, it totally made sense for things to go south. I feel like that was glossed over a little bit too easily, but it's fine, whatever. But I'm out here for guys trying to win girls back and like doing everything, doing the most to win the girl back, and that's really what Cassidy does through this whole book, and I really liked that. There were also some other things like a side plot that I didn't really love how things happened in it. Like, it made sense, but I just didn't love it. Romance was cute. That's what I care about with contemporaries. Like, if the romance is cute, if the drama is pretty good, then I'm in. I like it. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up is The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni, something like that. So at work, we're having a book club now where we're reading business leadership and just leadership books in general, and this was our first quarter read. I really actually enjoyed it a lot. It's about the ideal team player, and the first half of the book is told in parable format, so it's kind of a story about looking for people who are humble, hungry, and smart, and those are the kinds of people you should look for, not necessarily skill set, but that is important. The most important thing is people's attitudes and how they learn and grow. I feel like I learned a lot from this book. If you're interested, you should check it out. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up is Wonder by R.J. Palaccio. I don't know if I said that right, sorry. This is about a boy named August who has been born with a facial difference, and he has always been homeschooled. He's always kind of kept to his family, but this year he is starting 5th grade and he's going to a public school, and this book is about his journey through 5th grade. I read this book almost entirely in one sitting. I just like started reading and could not stop, and really liked the story. August is such an interesting and dynamic character, and I feel like he grows a lot throughout the book. It was well written, and I felt like it even captured elementary school and moving into middle school and dealing with mean kids and dealing with people being awful. So I really liked that portion of the book. One of my main qualms with the book was that we started in August's perspective and then we get other perspectives that some of them are good and some of them are totally unnecessary, but they're all just about August instead of him telling his own story, and I kind of was like, why do we do that? Also, I know a big thing I've learned about recently is disability stories not written for disabled people. It's inspiring for people that are abled. So that is problematic in and of itself, and I believe that there's been a lot of discussion around this book, and that being the case, at the end there was some tension within that, and it kind of addressed that, but it could have done a lot better of a job with that. So while I really liked the story, and I really liked a story about August and about his journey and about his growth, I feel like there were parts that could have been done better. But I still enjoyed myself throughout the book. I'm sure that there are people that are much more qualified to talk about this than I am, so I'm gonna try to find some reviews to link you down below that you can go read and kind of see where people are coming from, because I'm not the best person to give that opinion. That's just kind of what I've seen and what I felt while reading it. so there you have it. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up is Wild Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore. And I buddy read this with Hannah from A Clockwork Reader. And this is about a family of women who lives in this place called La Pradera, and they grow the garden with their hands. It's a bit of magical realism. It's really beautiful. Then one day this boy appears out of the dirt and doesn't know his name. And Estrella, one of the main characters, really bonds with him and wants to figure out why he's there, where he came from, and what that means for their family. Because for years and years and years, they have been building a garden at La Pradera, but if they ever try to leave, they die. And if they fall in love too deeply with someone, that person disappears. So there's a lot of mysteries, a lot of things happening, and a lot of things for you to try and figure out while you read. I had a lot of theories while I was reading this book. I had theories about what I thought Fell's appearance meant. I had theories about what I thought this book was going to be, and it did not do any of those things, which is very unusual for me. I can usually kind of pinpoint at least some major plot points while I'm reading. At the beginning, I'm like, oh, this is what's gonna happen. And this one was something completely different and totally unexpected, and I loved that about it. The magical realism in this book is beautifully done. There's a lot of talk about bisexuality in this book and just sexuality in general and different kinds of sexuality. That was not something I knew about this book beforehand. I just figured it was like love and magical realism. Now you know. But overall, a really beautiful story, tackling some really tough subjects and really tough issues, and I enjoyed it. And I loved buddy reading it with Hannah because Hannah's the best. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. And that's it for the books that I read in February. Now I'm gonna give you the 5 books to choose from for what I want to read this month. I'm feeling a little lazy, so I think I'm just gonna say the titles and then give you the poll. And I'll pop up a picture of the cover or something, but I don't feel like getting the books off of my shelf. Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo, Wayfarer by Alexandra Bracken, Vengeance Road by Erin Bowman, We Are Okay by Nina LaCour, and The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I have a feeling I know what will win. I'm gonna put the poll here anyway, vote, and depending on when I get this up, I'll be reading this in March or in April, possibly in April. At some point you'll see me talk about it. And the book that won last month is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, so I will be reading that soon as well. Let me know down below what you read in February or what you're currently reading right now and loving or hating. Tell me your feels about what your current read is. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Just got all sorts of noise today. It's a hot mess.